And welcome to Service Talk.
And it's 2023, y'all.
And we also have to ask just exactly when is enough going to be enough?
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, I've got nothing else. And welcome back to Conservative Talk. My name is Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And as always, we like to start off with every episode, making sure that we encourage our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like and the share button on every one of our platforms. That way you can help Jamie and I to be able to get organically higher in the newsfeed and get our message out a lot further than what we would be able to on our own. We also encourage everyone to make sure that they are also subscribing. That way you'll never miss a single episode of anything that we produce. You'll always be able to stay in the know and up to date with everything. You'll always be able to see Jamie's heartwarming smile and hear that roaringly infectious laughter. We also like to encourage our viewers to make sure they're going to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us out with what you're able to, because every little bit does go a long way to allowing Jamie and I to be able to continue these productions in our platform, to ultimately be able to come in and take over the world one day. I mean, and
basically what my
we will do that. So with that in mind, Jamie, would you like to give your reminder?
Boycott hometown headlines. Hey, it's a dying outlet, and I think we have some other solutions that we'll be getting to in the future that I haven't told Justin about yet, that will help in the process, but you all are the starting key, and it's your boycott that is continuing to drive that ungodly news source out of business, and we got to keep doing it.
Oh, wow. Strong words from a strong man.
Hey, I'm telling you.
With that in mind, we do like to give a quick acknowledgement to our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Networks. The Net News Network is a compilation of grassroots networks or grassroots content producers who are on the front or who are on the ground, who know what's going on in local areas and really have a very keen firsthand ability to give you localized news. And you can find Net News Network by going to netnewsnetwork.net. We do want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First. So Veterans for America First is a grassroots political organization that really gets on the ground and pushes the America First policy across the country. And they do part of that through promoting candidates who work to push this platform and who really get out there and fight tooth and nail to ensure that not just Georgia, but America remains the strongest nation in the world. And they do that through their media wing. So you can find their media productions at Vet Voice. That's on every major social platform or any major viewing platform. You can search for Vet Voice. You'll find America First quality content producers who are on the front lines and fighting to make sure that we do remain the strongest country in the world. So with that in mind, Jamie, let's jump right into the first topic that we were going to talk about, and it is 2023, y'all.
It's 2023. Wow, what an amazing new year. I'm glad it's a new year. There's a lot that's going on this year. A lot.
Yeah.
You know, and even before from a national level, major things are going on. International level, major things are going on. And then for all those in the state of Georgia, for local level, you know, your municipalities are getting ready to run for their off year, which is all of your nonpartisan seats, but we know how well that title fits. So those are going to matter now because, you know, though we were able to drive a lot of Democrats out in 2022, it's your local nonpartisan seats to where you see a lot of these appointees that Democrats start to come in. So we got to make sure that we don't forget about those.
Yes. These local municipal elections are going to be of more consequence to you than anything that is done at the federal or even global level.
Yep.
Quite frankly, all policy starts locally and all effective policy starts locally.
And that's going to be a really big thing. So like, just let's take for an example. Okay. And this is something that hits real close to home in the city of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
That being when we look at development and bringing in industry to Floyd County and the city of Rome. One thing that developers look at is the value of property and how property values can go up. And one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that when you have a housing project or a, you know what I mean, Section 8 style housing come in, that is wiped off of the property tax value, right? So it's off the digest. So here's what I'm really saying. Though I know we need more housing for everyone, if we do not plan housing properly, then we're going to reduce industry from coming in. We have to be strategic when we come into placing housing, when we come into what housing developments go in, and how we allow for, income-based, low-income housing to be developed inside of rural areas. And that's going to be major because there's a lot of people who are on some of these municipal boards who are in favor of more projects like that versus actual, traditional construction and development.
Not only are they sitting on those boards, they're in these elected positions that are going to be on the ballot.
Correct. You know what, y'all, I'll never really hide anything anyway. So we have 6 people who are very close with the housing authority that are on the City of Rome Commission. That is the majority of that board. Mm-hmm. So when they start voting and they start voting down housing projects that can help industry versus voting housing projects that only keep people at a certain income and on government subsidies, we start to have a problem, and it's a long-term problem to what they're seeing as a short-term solution. And not to dabble too much into this, but perfect example is when you turn down an apartment complex because you feel that the value may be too high for, or it may cost too much for people to come in, right?
Or people of that immediate area that are already living there. Yes.
But what you're doing is you're limiting the workforce that can come in to support other industries.
Yes, exactly.
Because one thing that companies are looking at now is if I bring in a new project, if I bring in a new development, if I bring in even a new manufacturing place, what's the availability of workers? Mm-hmm. Even if they were to bring in workers, can I have them within walking distance of my facility? Because then they're still going to come to work. So when we start turning down projects and, wherever they are, because we don't think that the people will be able to make that income, you're telling industry that you don't want them to come to try to, grow a business there or move a business there. And so that's going to be a major player when it comes to looking at who's going to be on the Rome City Commission coming up.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that. It's funny that what you were talking about just a moment ago, them seeing it as a short-term solution to a long-term problem, and the fact that one of the areas that they're considering, or that was being considered for one of these projects such as that, and bringing in housing that was not this public subsidized housing, is in an area that typically economically is on the lower depressed end of it. But they shot it down because they said that it would have came in and gentrified the area. It would have outpriced a lot of people out of their homes, which that's not true at all.
No.
I mean, it would have raised the property values of those homes. And not to the point to where people can't afford it, because it's an apartment complex coming in. It's not McMansions being built right on the side of this area.
See, a lot of people, here's a lot of things that are misconstrued about modern day apartment complexes. Okay. Versus what low income housing.
Mm-hmm.
Low income housing is set at a fixed price to where, for a certain portion of it, their taxes are subsidized or there are no taxes that are paid on the property. Whereas apartment complexes are seen as commercial projects, so they pay 100% of the tax. There's no subsidies. They pay all property taxes on it, which is why a lot of times people say that the value of the units is so high. All that can revert back to zoning, materials types used, all that falls into, your return on your investment.
Which in what we're seeing more and more around this area, these public subsidized housing areas are often coming out at a lot nicer and a lot higher quality than some of the commercial places, simply because they're able to take some of that money and turn it around and invest it back into these facilities.
Yeah, because all they're doing, right? We're all buying material. Everybody's buying material from the same sources.
Mhm.
Okay, so you want good appliances, good material, everything else, but they're not so much worried about the return on their investment because that's modeled a little bit different than a private company who's coming in and building.
Mhm.
And again, I can't reiterate this enough. If you want to attract industry, then you have to have housing that's near the industry, because we are reaching a modern day time as to one or two things are going to happen. Either people aren't going to be able to travel far distances for work, or people naturally, because of the community, are wanting to or have the ability to walk to work. So you can't have this pedestrian friendly area and not be able to have industry around it or have housing near industry. And so that's one thing that I think is going to be very valuable, especially for Northwest Georgia as a whole, because we are more of an industrial area. So we need to start looking at, maybe it's time to put apartment complexes in these office parks, you know what I mean? Or in these, industrial facility, like industrial parks. Because I tell you what, the fact,
as long as it's not publicly subsidized housing.
As long as it's not publicly subsidized. Think about it. You have a private apartment complex builder come in and you tell an 18-year-old kid, hey, you got a job right here and your house is right there.
Mm-hmm.
You can rent an apartment right there next to work, because the only thing that they're worried about at that point is, how fast can I get home from work? And will I be able to keep my job if something happens? So I think there's a way. And all it is too is the old Mill Village concept. It's just modernized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not wrong about that. I mean, currently sitting in a perfect example of that.
Yeah. Lived in Mill Village for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the thing. And that's why your municipal elections are going to be the ones, because that municipal and your school board are the two things that will affect everyday citizens more than even your state races for House or Senate or your federal level, especially your federal level.
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. Without question. There are more laws and more regulations passed at the local level than you'll ever find at the federal level. Although I will say the federal level's laws can be a lot more lengthy, just because of all the confusing and just
the overreach.
Yeah, well, not just that, but all of the information that's piled into it in an effort to confuse everyone around it and try and hide what's actually being done. Your local politicians aren't able to do that because you're able to see them at the grocery stores, and they're not able to get away from that quickly.
Yep, they can't run when they got to pick up milk.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why local elected officials will, if you know who they are, it's easier to get a hold of them to try to get something changed and get something done. Plus, you don't want, it's disrespectful to try to have a higher up try to come in, a higher up elected official to try to come in, and handle some certain things. And you don't want that. You want local control. So I encourage everyone to get out there, especially on nonpartisan, right, elections, and make sure that your voice is heard.
So this is going to sound a little confusing to our viewers, but I now have it on video, and it has been recorded. Jamie just admitted that I was correct once again in that previous statement he just made. Jamie and I had a conversation about money coming from the federal government.
Whoa.
As opposed to it coming from localized sources.
Whoa.
And on that.
Hold on.
So he just admitted that it is bad for
elected officials. Federal elected officials
to focus money into local areas as opposed to the local areas doing it themselves. Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate it.
As Ukraine has taught us, money has no border.
Ukraine, Jordan, Lebanon, the
money
UN,
has no border.
Mexico,
And I'd rather us take the federal money.
else.
I'd rather us take the federal money to fix some local roads than for Ukraine to get it to rebuild it. Because here's the other thing:
we weren't talking about local roads in this.
We weren't.
No, this was not. We were not talking about local roads at all.
We weren't.
That instance.
I will say this though, because it's been the growing question. And speaking of federal, we'll kind of hop to the craziness, what's going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that there is not anything? No one has found anything in any of the money that we're sending to Ukraine that says that we're ever going to get this back.
Oh no, we gave it to them.
Straight up gave it to him.
Mm-hmm.
So for those of you who don't know, me and Justin have gone back and forth about this for multiple situations, and what we've really come to find out that it varies. What that is similar like the Land Lease Act or a few other things. We will give money to foreign countries, and for the majority of the time, there is some kind of statement, clause, or anything after their reconstruction that they will start to pay some of that money back. Except for Ukraine. No one can find where what is up to now, $180 billion. I had a rant the other day because I just can't believe that we're continuing to allow Democrats to do this. And I cannot wait for Republicans to come in and finally get things together back in the House, because, we have now let one time. I understand, we let Benjamin Netanyahu do it one time. It is seen that when there's time for a crisis, they're allowed to have a foreign, president or prime minister come in and speak to, the House or speak to both chambers of Congress. But the continuation of letting Zelensky, I will never get his name right, come in, and then they flew a foreign flag.
Yeah.
Like the man was giving the State of the Union, and then they signed it. That's treason. That's literally like if you're going to get upset, and I'm just going to flat out say, if you're going to get upset because someone brought the Confederate flag in there, which those are still United States citizens, brought the Confederate flag into the Capitol, and then you're still going to hold them, but you're going to let someone come in and parade around a foreign flag in our chambers.
Mm-hmm.
That's treason. That's by definition, that's treason. And why no one's wanting to call them on this is really irritating me.
Well, not just that, but also going back to the money aspect of it. The man that came in there and said, thank you for all you've done, but it's not enough.
I saw, if you know me, if this never works out, I'm gonna be a stand-up comedian. And I saw a meme of this man like with a stripper pole in front of him, because it's never enough. Doesn't matter how much we throw at him.
He's pretty good. He's just trying to pay his way.
He's just trying to pay his way through college.
Oh man. But yeah, it's that statement alone. I mean, we have Americans who, in that very city where he was, who are veterans, who are sleeping in the street, who have fought for their country, who've bled for their country, who have been wounded in ways that are not only just visible but invisible to the eye. And he's coming in there saying, thank you for what you've done for us, but it's not enough. We need more. And
they just signed a blank check.
Mm-hmm.
They signed more money to go to Ukraine than they did to bail out people's mortgages. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
They let United States citizens lose everything. They refuse to protect our border walls. They let children dress up in the most heinous outfits ever. But they're just going to forfeit all the money that they want to a country that people died for it to be free.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
United States citizens died for the border that created Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're what they did there was so unconscionable. It's I can't even imagine how they're able to rationalize this to themselves. And part of that being, and I've seen some of the new, well, not new, but some of the members of the Republican House are putting that on McCarthy's shoulders and saying
Speaking
that
of,
he was the reason, and he was complicit in allowing this to happen and go forward.
I don't think so.
How that's even possible is beyond me.
Well,
That doesn't even make any sense.
You know what it is, and you know, just like people make up anything
to raise money,
and get someone out of power. And the reality is that Kevin McCarthy needs to be the next Speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to be.
Well, I mean, and I agree with you on that. Not from a principled standpoint or from a fundamental standpoint, but from a practical standpoint.
Yep.
And I mean that by saying there is nobody else that is running that is in a position to where they're able to, from day one, step in and take charge and move where we need to go.
And I think that's a valid point too, because we're thinking about it from two totally different angles, but we're coming to the same conclusion. And that is, like, in my mind,
mm-hmm.
Kevin McCarthy is the only person who I see right now who both sides of the Republican Party can go to try to make some kind of middle ground. There are things that, you know, I mean, whether you're establishment, MAGA, Tea Party, whoever, you know, that we may not agree upon, but here's someone who we know can meet in the middle that can say that this is the best for the party as a whole. But you're right. Like anybody else, like they still got to get all the other mechanics.
They've got to put together a rules package. They've got to put together the way the House is actually going to be governed. No one else outside of McCarthy has even done any of that. Even the Democratic person who is leading the Democrat Party doesn't have all of that together.
Which means that we would come in 6 to 8 months behind going with someone else, because they would have to then take 3 to 4 months getting staff together, putting a rules package together, figuring out like what they want to do and what the party itself is going to want to do in the House, and then try to implement it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everyone has known for the past 2 years that McCarthy's going to make a move for this position. It's known. I mean that was one of the most widely known things about
that wasn't even a
secret.
secret.
Exactly. But yet at the time, nobody was doing anything in that position in order to get the gains that they would need for that seat. They just came out and said, oh, well, he's doing it. We know he's doing it now. I'm not doing it. I'm not getting behind him. These are things that I want. I'm not getting behind him. Well, you notice when they say that they're not getting behind him, they say, these are the things that I want. I'm not getting behind him. So they're giving a list of demands.
And you know, it's funny because you even see that on, you know, other levels of government where you have people who just continuously say no, but don't have any kind of outline of what they would plan to do better.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just come and say, well, I don't like this, we don't need to do it that way, and not have any kind of solution on how to fix the actual problem. You know, just being a no vote or disagreeing with the way things are going is not enough. Like if you're going to disagree, then have a actual plan that you've put together that you can kind of show why that's not the route to go.
Exactly. Yet none of the other people that are none of the people who have come out against him for this position have done that.
None. And I mean, and here's the thing too, right? We have a majority in the House of 222 people. The majority itself is 218. There are, you know, 5 holdouts right now. Only one of them, if one of them changes their mind, you know, then he's in at a base level. That's 218 people.
And keep this in mind too. In the past 100 years, there has never been a second ballot for the Speaker of the House. Never. So the fact that this could likely go to a second ballot is historic within itself.
Don't want to be on the wrong side of history.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was the last one that was there. I think that one may have been a very relatively short term, but the one prior to that, I believe it was in 1855, somewhere around about there, lasted for about 2 or 3 months. The House could not meet and legislate for 2 to 3 months.
Because they could not pick a speaker or a rule packet.
Because the speaker, as soon as the speaker is selected, he then swears in the body a whole.
So here, I think this is a good point to bring up too, right? Because I hate to say it this way, but I have to. That, you know, every 4 years or so, we get this new wave. Sometimes it lasts 8 years or so, and where everyone hates on the establishment, right? But here's kind of the reality, though. Those are the wise ones who still know the rules, and I will say that the majority of the establishment, not those who are retiring, as we're seeing, are willing to play ball with the way with the direction that things are going now. But you got to realize that, like, you want someone who understands the rules, that can say, hey, you know, you don't want to do X because Y is the repercussion.
Well, I mean,
Justin don't want to agree with this statement.
No,
but he knows this.
That's 100% not true, because you could have somebody that would come in that knows all the rules, that is so anti-establishment.
You got to know where the bodies are buried, though.
Not necessarily true. You
you don't want to get killed with some hiccups. And that's the one thing we don't want to fold, having a wise person on the other side.
The bodies are buried.
Not all of them, but you need to know where the big ones are.
No, because you bury all new ones.
May the bridges we burn light the way. That's not a motto that you use for every situation, because then what happens when the zombies come? Because there's always zombies. There's always zombies.
They can't follow us then. Because the bridges are gone. Zombies can't swim.
I don't know the zombies that you know, but I'm telling you, there's some things that come back to haunt politics. There's some things that come back to haunt politics that are not.
That's why you bury new bodies.
This part's getting a little too deep for me.
Okay, Jamie, you'll learn something in the future, all right?
Oh. Hey, I'm not saying that y'all will this route, because cockroaches like me aren't going anywhere, but you can nuke us. The establishment's gonna be here. I don't care how many times I gotta tell you. 2 cycles, you're in. You just gotta win twice. Y'all look, you'll learn.
We've done that and we're still not in.
Oh, we'll see.
Really not liking you right now. Really not liking it. Because you said that, some things have jumped in my mind, and I'm really not liking you right now.
Hey, it's fine. Being a cockroach ain't bad. It's painful at first, you know what I mean? The first time they hit you with the gamma rays, but your body gets used to it. Then they give you cool rings and stuff.
Nope.
It just is like, I'm out.
Nope.
I'm done with this.
No, I quit. Going back to my old libertarian ways.
Look, you know, at some point, to gosh honest truth, as much as I love the Republican Party, in my core, I just wish that we would just go back to that. Just go back to being true libertarians as a whole. Like everyone is so in the middle that no one knows what a party is. We're just free. Like, I'm talking like your local government, your little community. You know what I mean? Like the most powerful person is the person who has the biggest garden. You know what I mean?
I almost said something right there, but I don't want to get canceled. So I'm going to keep that to myself.
Hey, no sharecropping.
Was it sharecropping I was thinking of?
Hey, look.
you're in the wrong part of the country to talking about going back to the biggest gardens.
Hey, look, the largest. I'm just gonna say it. Do you realize that the largest slave owner in the during the time of the Confederacy was a black man from Louisiana? So I have no problem. Aristocracy is the only thing I've ever cared about anyway. Because this is America, and that in itself, I promise you, that in itself proves that in America, capitalism is and forever will be king.
And the first recognized legally recognized slave owner in America was another black man as well.
The first person to ever own slaves was black in the United States, in Virginia. That's correct. And it was when the transition from, it was basically he had an indentured servant. He said, yeah, I'm not letting him go. Stop me. And he got a judge to rule in his favor in Virginia, and slavery in America was found.
Yep.
And then the largest property owner in the state of Louisiana, who became the largest slave owner, was a black man down, and that was through the Confederacy. So when you start putting everything together, this is what really
this is an inside job.
And correct. And this is what grinds people's gears, because every time they start talking about, every time they start talking about the Civil War being about slavery, but it was between black people because they didn't want to let go of slavery. They were black people were making just as much money off of it as white people.
Well, think about this: the Emancipation Proclamation didn't actually free the slaves.
It didn't.
It only freed the slaves in the Confederacy, not in the North.
General
Grant actually carried 2 slaves with him as he did his march to the sea.
Which is also why, too. Here's the crazy thing: there are more sunset cities, which means that black people can't go out after dark, in the state of Ohio than there are anywhere else in the country.
Did not know that.
Illinois, did you know also this too? This wasn't found out until later, but when Abraham Lincoln was first running for president, he would preach to keep slavery in Southern Illinois, and he would preach to end slavery in Northern Illinois, because he knew that the message wouldn't travel between the two parts of the state.
Are you aware of the fact that he actually offered the Confederacy 7 separate times to allow them to keep slavery? They just had to pay taxes on the slaves that they had.
Correct. Which goes back to the whole point of the Civil War was never about slavery.
Mm-mm.
It was about industry. It was about them. It was trying to keep the North from coming in and taking over our farms and using them for textile mills.
It was about federalism versus the notion of federalism versus the notion of the Confederacy.
Yep.
You have a strong centralized government, or you have several strong governments that then has a very loose centralized government.
Yep. Which is the same battle that we're still fighting with the Democrats today.
States' rights.
102. Confucius saying.
Oh man. But yeah, no, that's wow, that's a bit of a,
that was unexpected, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was good. That was an interesting little 2023 sidebar there.
Because that's it. I mean, that's what we're still fighting for the same. And think about this too. Right? History always repeats itself.
Oh yes, without a doubt.
And it's interesting that when we still go back to this, we're still fighting the Civil War, the same one we've been fighting from the beginning. Only difference is we're still talking about states' rights. The South is still fighting the North. The ideologies are still the same. The parties just flip, and that's really a Kennedy thing, right? Because when Kennedy did it, people wonder why JFK was so loved. It was because he was a Democrat that said Republican stuff. I almost said a cuss word. He was a Democrat that said Republican stuff. He came in for lowering taxes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He came in to bring back industry inside the United States. You hadn't had a Democrat do that since then. Well, I take that back. From an economic standpoint, no, that's pretty much it. Every other time it's been a Republican. It's been a Republican who's come in and said, here's how money works. You can't spin the bank. you have to look at ways of growing industry and motivating people to be productive, because that's the only way that you grow capital.
Well, I differ a little bit in that logic, and that mindset. Kennedy did come in as a very, I would say, kind of left or right of center when it comes to where his ideology was economically. But once Johnson came in, that's where the flip was Johnson. Johnson capitulated to so much of what some of the radicalized groups were doing and what they were pushing that it destroyed a lot of the Democrat national movement.
I see that. And that's a very good point. Because really, because he did it, and from a social standpoint, whereas Kennedy hit it straight with the power of the purse, because that's when Keynesian, right, really came to being. When it says, "Hey, let's run a deficit and build NASA." That's really what made JFK who he was, and when he did spend government money to put a man on the moon, like that's why there's most of NASA's in the South. But we've come out of that now. Arthur Laffer is a great example of modern day economics, and he has an awesome course on Hillsdale College online. I say check it out. I took it. It was really good.
I have to look at that. Talking about that time era, then I don't know why I'm going to bring this up and talking about it, but have you ever watched an actual documentary on the history of Area 51 in Roswell, New Mexico?
No. No, I want to though.
There's one that shows a lot of the information that was declassified and shows what was actually done and tested and brought to light out there that had been going on. And it's incredible. It's all about how the CIA operating on American soil, funding all of the spy planes and everything that were commissioned to be built out there, all the hangars, how Area 51 was really only meant to be a temporary site, had like a single hangar with a mobile, like a mobile air tower, and then trailers for the workers who were working out there on the airplanes. It showed photos of the airplanes while they were being out there being constructed and all of that. It's actually pretty interesting. I'll have to show it to you.
That's wild. Yeah. I'm going to check that out.
It's where the U-2 bomb, the U-2 spy plane was developed, where the new stealth bombers that we have now were developed. It's after that declassification of all that stuff, it was pretty interesting. And you can see it actually shows the aerial photos that were taken, not only by us, but by Russia as well. Like that's how Russia got wind or got knowledge of how we were developing, I believe it was the U-2, because it got so hot out there. Whenever a Russian satellite was going over, they used to have models of the airplane up on a pole to test how it reflected the radar. Well, whenever they knew that the spy satellite was coming over, they removed the model off the airplane or off this pole. But because of how hot it was out there, the shadow from where the airplane was on the ground was cooler than the area outside of where the shadow was. So the Russian spy planes taking thermal imaging was able to see what the shape of the airplane was without actually seeing the airplane.
Holy cow. That's big.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out. Me and Buck have to watch it because oh god, we'll go deep.
It doesn't show the underground structures, but it does show the top surface area.
Yeah, where they took all the photos and everything else. Because that brings up another point, since we're kind of in the conspiracy corner. There was a guy that didn't even notice it, but I think we talked about this before. His whole website and everything was shut down, and there's been a lot more stories about things like that coming more to light now that the internet's around. And I heard a story from someone, and I'd take this with a grain of salt, but there's that everyone's trying to break light speed, right? and you can only go so far and so fast, you know, and no one's ever been able to do it. But the theory is, right, that if you do go out there and try to come back around, you're moving so fast that if you don't break light speed, you're really aging years and minutes. And so someone who, if potentially could go out to the solar system, try to fly back, this is something that they would do at Area 51, and everyone down here would age 2-3 years at a time, where the person in the plane would only age a minute at a time because they're trying to break light speed. There's a lot of things. I gotta get off TikTok.
You know where that comes from?
Buzz Lightyear. Yeah. And the theory of relativity.
Yes.
Look.
That only correlates if you're kissing dudes.
No. Or there's little kids in your house, but so, because the theory of relativity, right? It's the same thing with a gravitational pull around a black hole, because in a black hole, theoretically, the closer you are to the black hole, the slower time moves, so that you could be actually on the outskirts of a black hole. And if you were falling into it, you could see yourself from a different direction. So the closer you would get, you could see your past self, because gravity and everything is so dense that you're watching something happen in the past. Similar to how light refracts to us, that light or that star exploded decades ago, but we're just now receiving the light.
That's also because of how far away it is.
True. But all that is because it has to deviate through matter. Or dark matter.
It has hundreds of millions of light years to travel. So,
and Buzz Lightyear kind of broke that down in the new Buzz Lightyear movie. Anyway, I think I gotta go.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you.
And
yeah, well,
that.
Yeah, with that, we like to make sure that our viewers are hitting the like and the share button on any of the content that we do produce. Make sure you're also subscribed to all of our channels. That way, you'll always be able to come back and get any of our content that we produce. You'll always be able to hear Jamie's incredibly and roaringly infectious laughter, and hear that and see that heartwarming smile. See what you guys got me so excited now. I can't even get it out. We also invite our viewers to go to our website at conservativetalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right hand corner or lower right hand corner, helping us out with what you're able to. You will be directly funding to Jamie and I one day taking over the world. And we do want to say a quick thank you again to Net News Network. You can find them at netnewsnetwork.net, and Veterans for America First and their media arm, Vet Voice. So with that in mind, Jamie, any closing thoughts? Sane closing thoughts?
I hope everyone has a great new year. We're really excited about, the future of things in 2023 for Conservatives Talk. And we want to say that, even though we consider this an off year for politics, your local elections matter more than anything. So you got to make sure that you get out there and vote for your supposed to be nonpartisan elections. But we all know how that happens.
Absolutely. And, well, with that in mind, this has been Conservative Talk, and we will